this week home. My wife's best friend is a doctor. She's a geriatrics doctor, and talked to her a couple days ago, and she's just like, oh.
So is Michigan.
She's not too upset over it.
We decided we're still going to Florida because if you get it, you get it. I mean.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for coming. We will get started with, should we do the committees or?
No, let's do it.
Okay.
Let's move GA1, G1A.
Okay, we're just gonna go ahead and get started with the update from Art on the COVID.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, appreciate it. I just want to make a brief statement, and then we have, I know we've kind of been continuing with you, communicating with you continuously throughout this whole thing, and it's been a changing thing, but this global pandemic presents complex and lasting problems, obviously, and I've been really encouraged by the cooperation and coordination of many of the national, state, and local entities. Particularly the last couple of weeks, there have been many hours of discussion and planning. I know some of you have been a part of a lot of those, and I appreciate the measured, thoughtful approach of the board and the administrators working on this. I believe steps being taken in the district and the community and the state will help minimize the risk for some of our most vulnerable population. And my personal overarching goals, which are consistent with all the work we've been doing, are the following. I just want to mention 4 things that I really hope we accomplish here. One is to keep our students and families safe. Another is to support and care for our staff. The third one is to do our part to limit community spread of the pandemic. And then fourth, to make responsible decisions and to communicate well. And that's what we've been trying to do throughout. And I hope that people understand that it is a complex situation, and we're just trying to do what is best and follow the best guidance we get, and then do what we can for the community. So tonight we do have, as an added agenda item, once we approve the agenda, we're asking the board to approve the governor's recommendation, which he reiterated at a press conference here just recently, to close our school facilities until April 13th, understanding that this is a fluid situation. And we've got some confirmation of things that we didn't know until the last hour, which is the governor telling us that the legislature will forgive or lift the hours requirement, which will help schools during this time that they're closed, and that they will be given the authority to the governor then, in case anything gets extended, to make a decision if there's a need for anything more. So where that will help us will be with some staffing things as well, some staffing decisions that will really help out, knowing and having some clarity around that we will not have to make up the time during that closure. So I'm sure you'll get into some of that. You have some background there Mr. Williams has given you. But I just wanted to lead off with that, since that's kind of the topic of the night. And once you get your agenda approved, then we have that action item.
Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and move into the good news. Ron, do you have that?
Yep. A lot of good things as usual happening. As you look down that list, John, are you running the agenda in Ray's absence?
He doesn't know about that, so no.
Well, I'll try to do a better job then of just summarizing everything.
Okay.
As I go down the good news that Art does such a good job of preparing each week, there was Art wanted to call attention to the book fair at Whittier Elementary School. The PTO was there in force, providing donuts and cookies and other treats. They raised nearly $100 that I believe will go to the Indianola Public Library. Had some great news with our DECA program. We had 9 kids qualify for the international competition in Nashville, which is pretty exciting. It just got canceled, but that does not diminish the accomplishment. So a lot kudos to all of them. There's information there about Mrs. Wolf and her efforts to integrate her math curriculum with her life skills curriculum, doing a great job of getting kids involved with, cooking, her cafe, coffee shop, and also just, as I said, integrating those everyday kind of math skills with life skills. So kudos to her as well. Liam Christensen, Brennan Mitchum were selected to the Iowa Football Coaches Association 2019 Academic All-State Team. We had a lot of success by our show choirs. The high school show choirs went to Marion, and one side finished first runner-up, and flip side took first. So great job out of both groups. Our debate team also had a lot of success. They won the overall points total for the Eastern District of the National Speech and Debate Association. Just a lot of great things going on. Here's just mention of Mr. Clockey and his plant health and conservation of soil nutrients lesson, which looks to be pretty exciting stuff. Academic decathlon at the high school competed in the state competition in Waterloo. And then we had student won silver award in the 2020 Nebraska American Advertising Association, a Josie Neighborhouse, an IHS grad. So I'm not sure how long ago he graduated, or she graduated rather.
Maybe about 10 years ago.
Was it? Okay. Pretty,
Maybe
I mean,
not quite that long.
pretty impressive pictures there of what the products were. So some additional information, Miss Powers' March Madness, again, another cancellation. Kids did a flurry of books bracket. And then Miss Pfeiffer's kindergarten class showing some of the books that they made. So a lot of interesting and fun things going on in the schools.
Unfortunately, it's gonna be a lot shorter next year.
We'll find something to celebrate.
No, I know, yeah.
Thank you, Ron. Moving on to the consent agenda. You guys have that in your board packets. The only thing that would maybe be a little different would be your, let's see here, was that the professional development.
And those are all, those professional development contracts that are listed as number 5 are essentially workshop requests or workshop permissions relating to Bridges Math, which is the new math curriculum at the elementary school. So I think there are different requests for different grade levels.
Yeah, I think, so it's to help our teachers get, and we talked about this at the curriculum meeting, to help the teachers get trained a little bit better. And this year they did an early session in July for Irving teachers, because usually they were waiting till like September, October. So there's one session, July 7th for K through 5 of Irving, and then 2 other sessions which would cover all our elementary school teachers in September. So they just need our approval.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Motion made by Ken.
Second.
Seconded by Ben. All those in favor, or let's see, any further board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 7-0. Next item, let's see, let's go to Sue. Let's go ahead and have you do the wellness committee update.
Yeah, so we had a full wellness committee made up of a lot of the district's guidance counselors and Stacy Warren from AEA and a few other the instructional coaches. This is a committee open to really anybody. They came up with their whole person wellness definition as an active process through which people strive towards positive mindset, healthy habits, positive relationships, and emotional awareness. This committee's short-term goals is really focusing on how to help the staff get resources and how we can better support the staff with wellness. So current things they're thinking about right now are the smart dress code and the wellness lounges. So they would like to create a platform for mental health that can be logged in on our website at some point that'll have different resources for the different categories of people, student, parents, staff, and administrators. And then kind of the administrative team met a week ago, and we looked at what our current contracts are within our school district, and just talked a little bit about the different services. And we talked about current trainings that are going on throughout our school district, which is quite a bit. I mean, the training we're doing for our students in the different elementaries and our middle school and high school. So looking at what is coming up in the books for that training in 2020 and 2021. And then we really kind of got down to the thick of what would really enhance our district's wellness and mental health policy. And I think with all of us sitting there, we realized We really needed somebody in our district that will buy into us, buy into our students, our family, and who we are as Indianola. And so we are recommending, and this is just conversations that obviously have been put on the back burner a little bit, but we're really looking at what it would take for our school district to bring on one that we hire through the school district, and that way they are kind of a set face in the community for our students and our kids. One that can really create that relationship with them, and one that can really bring a better light to mental health, and people start feeling comfortable and stuff. So we're looking right now at different job descriptions. There's a few schools in the state of Iowa that I've reached out to that really have had people on district, on staff for many years, and just looking at kind of their protocol and stuff like that. And so Ron and I are kind of working together. What is the job descriptions? What would it look like for, you know, us to bring one on as a district employee? And then we looked at also looking at one as kind of a supplement. So, you know, we would supplement them so much money, and then they would also have their own business on the other side too. One of the big negatives right now behind school-based mental health is that the therapists are only paid for when they get to see somebody. So right now, when your schools are shut down for 4 weeks, those therapists will not get paid unless they have clients outside of school. So with this supplement, we could meet them, we could help them during spring break, help them during you know, our winter break, give them that little bit of supplement, and then they could still run their other clients and business from that point. So looking at both those things and really diving into and hopefully coming up with something for the fall school year.
So you probably have further discussion in the committee meetings on that.
Yeah, I think one of the things, you know, we talked a lot about what we're doing well, and I think we've come a long way in 5 years. We have a good referral process, we have a clear sense of what we want to do, but when we asked ourselves what's getting in the way, it kind of boiled down to the continuity of services, the transitioning, the teaming piece, and that's where we kept coming back to. If we had somebody on our team that was doing it kind of the way we prescribed, we would have much more success. So I think that was an idea, and I mean, you agree or not, kind of underneath the surface, and then when we finally called the question, it just kind of became an obvious kind of thing to many of us.
And we had both Mr. Lohman and Miss Ellis in that, so they could speak to what their challenges they see at the middle school and the high school, and that it all just came back to exactly what you were talking about.
But have we really done much emphasis on the staff, or has it been mostly serving kids?
Well, our emphasis to this point has been serving kids.
That's what I mean, yeah.
We've had, we've done a lot of things and are working on a lot of things in terms of staff. Now, when we say training of staff, it's more to serve kids.
Right.
But one of the conversations we had, this person would not necessarily, these people would not necessarily be kid-specific. They would be a resource that we could use for everybody.
Right.
Not just kids, but taking care of adults too.
Yeah, we talked a lot about how, you know, one of our goals needs to be to provide some resources and some space for our teachers and our administrators that could use support in that area as well.
Good. Thanks, Sue. Thanks, Ron. Okay, we'll move down to, we don't have any presentations, to G1. This will be our major action item here.
I would just reiterate a couple of things that Art said. Today was a big day in that we learned a lot, and much of that learning was good information, and I think it was a very positive thing. I want to applaud the board for its efforts thus far, because the meeting we had on Friday was very helpful. I think it allowed us to communicate that commitment to following the recommendations of the Iowa Department of Public Health and the governor's office provided a focus, not just for our district, but other districts. I think now, it didn't take us long before we've actually had a recommendation. You're all aware that yesterday the governor recommended that we close school for at least 4 weeks to help mitigate the spread of this illness. So, you know, the cover page we've provided tried to be fairly specific in terms of what we're recommending. I would open it to you for questions.
Rob?
Yeah.
Would you be more comfortable if I put the motion on the floor?
Yeah.
I move that the Indianola Community School District cancel all classes through at least April 12th, 2020. Cancel or postpone all district activities during this period. Close all district facilities to the public and allow only limited access to the district personnel. Suspend all district rentals until further notice. Cancel all gatherings of 10 or more individuals until further notice. It's a motion. I'd love to have a second, then we can chat about it.
Seconded.
Seconded by Lori. Further discussion.
Just speaking to it, this is what our administration has come up with as they've worked through the myriad of press conferences and all that it is. It's pretty basic. It's what I think we have to do.
I was gonna add, I think, as a public and as employers, as, you know, parents and all that, I think you just have to realize you're not gonna get all your questions answered. It's very fluid. And I think that's hard for some people if they're arranging daycare, doing this, doing that. I mean, if we had answers, we'd give them. I think we just have to kind of realize we're not gonna be able to answer questions. We are going along with what a lot of other people are dealing with, and it's for the greater good, but we're just not gonna be able, people won't be happy. I mean, I'm not happy about certain things either with work and things like that, but I mean, I think that's just our new norm for a while, and I think we have to kind of realize what's really going on at a bigger level and be patient and be flexible. Sorry, that's, I'm done.
I do have one question. So say in 3 weeks, by some miracle, this goes away. Would we come back that 4th week or would we just stay out? I mean, is there a chance if circumstances change, which I'm not sure they will?
Their
But if
view
they
is
would-
long-term. Their view, the people,
I know, I
I
think
mean,
it's
it's
gonna be
longer.
long-term too.
I don't know that 4 weeks will be enough. I mean, it's good, that's a good question.
I know that's what Art made the comment
Yeah.
was, he's not sure even we'll be back, but.
Well, I think too, we have to remember that we continue to seek our guidance from the Iowa Department of Public Health and Governor
Right.
Reynolds. And so I think as, you know, some of the questions that people are asking, everything from food service to pay to everything, we have to wait till it comes down the ranks from what
Well, that's my other question.
people are
So our
suggesting.
hourly employees, do you have a plan yet for them?
I'll back up and answer your
Okay.
first question first. And in doing that, I would reiterate what Carolyn talked about. This is truly a fluid situation, and there is, I'm not exaggerating when I say new information emerging almost hourly. So I think if this crisis were to resolve itself prior to April 12th, I do think that we have, you as a board, have the capacity and the opportunity to return us to class. We will have a board meeting prior to that time, so if there was resolution, I think you could act to do that, okay? Some of the other details, the questions that you're asking, they're all things that were being talked about, and they're actually things that we're getting direction from the state. We don't have all the answers yet. So in terms of the paying people, we have made a commitment that we are going to find a way to get people paid. Now, if you ask me, do we have a plan? We have a commitment, and we think we have a direction, but we don't necessarily have details to a plan. There are other issues, things, for instance, we found out today, as Art said, the state is going to waive the hourly or daily instructional requirements, which helps a lot, just in terms of planning from a budget sense, because now we know what we're dealing with. They have provided a waiver for standardized testing, which helps a lot, because
So that-
now we know, now some of the pieces are becoming clear, so we know what we're dealing with. That doesn't mean we've got it all figured out. There are other issues that have to do with childcare. There are other issues that have to do with just different events. So I don't want you to think that we've got it all figured out, but we're a
But
lot farther now
we're
than we
working
were
on
this
it.
morning at 8 o'clock, so.
Yeah.
Just so people know, at least we're working on it, that's all I want, I think.
I think we're all committed for it.
Yeah.
We all are.
We all
One
are.
thing that has
To be
been
paid.
mentioned is, at this particular time, the current pay period ends, with this
And John,
vacation.
can you speak
and
to
things
that?
like
Payday or whatever, right?
Our payday is Friday this
Okay,
week,
so
so,
that's all settled, so there's time to work it out.
yeah, we've got a month to figure this out.
Yeah.
Where we don't have to hurry up and make a decision
Good.
or do But so all of March's hours are paid April 20th. So we've got some time that we can watch how this all starts to play out, so we can make the right decision and
Yeah.
do it correctly.
There's a lot of input that Jonna and Art, who will return someday, have to go through. There's a lot of federal laws that have to be concerned in all of that, because actually what we're talking about is how can we pay hourly people that aren't punching the clock at the time. I think everybody here is committed to do it, so I'm not worried about it.
So I assume we're gonna kinda have a game plan, like, as a parent, is there childcare? I mean, things that are kind of like the food service, I mean, just some of that are kind of within the 4 weeks, people need to know, and then some things are just gonna have to wait till it rolls out
There
and
are
becomes more obvious.
the big topics that we've already started wrestling with. First of all, we've mentioned feeding kids. That's a priority, and we're going to find a way to make that work. The state has waived summer feeding requirements so that we have the latitude and the flexibility to do that. I know that John Taylor and his wife are here. They have expertise in logistics and planning on a scale that most of us are unaccustomed to. You know, they're dealing with military issues and kind of massive infrastructures. They volunteered to help with that. So I'm pretty confident that we're gonna have a solution to that. It's not gonna be there tomorrow, but our hope would be by next week, you know, as we had regularly planned to kind of start things up again, we would have a plan in place. Now, that's gonna involve a lot in terms of staffing, inventory, just again, those logistical issues that the Taylors are gonna help us with. We're also wrestling with how we're gonna pay staff. I think we've heard that commitment, we are going to pay staff, so I hope that people hear that and are reassured by that. We have the child care issue is a topic that we've been going back and forth over all day. You've seen the different iterations of the recommendation that I sent you. I will tell you that there are a number of districts. I spoke with a superintendent in a neighboring district today that was very clear in saying we're gonna have to close our child care programs. And when I asked him, what are you basing that decision on? He said, well, we're basing it on kind of our sense that we're being directed to close our buildings, so it would be counterintuitive to keep these programs open rather. When asked, you know, who else is closing, he said, I don't know anybody besides you who's open. I think that's going to change, however, because at 4:30, we heard the director of the Department of Human Services pleading with people, all licensed providers, to stay open, because we need childcare, as Rob put it, to keep our economy moving. We need to make sure the children of medical providers and first responders and safety personnel are cared for so they can do their work. So that's why our recommendation was, did not include verbiage, or our final recommendation did not include any verbiage on that. You may want to talk about that more as a board and make that an addendum to the recommendation.
My intent was to make a second motion about childcare.
I think that's a good.
Oh, okay.
Would that be
Yeah, I
okay?
think so
Yeah,
too.
that's fine.
So on the motion that's on the table with the first and second, is there any other further discussion by the board to go ahead and complete the recommendation given to us?
Go for it.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. To speak to the limit of childcare or the need for childcare.
Okay, I'm gonna try a motion, because I don't think we ever came up with exact verbiage. And I'll be open to working around the words as I say it. You know, because I move that the Indianola Child Care remain open and serve its normal clientele.
The ones that are currently on the roster,
Yeah,
currently
current
enrolled.
roster.
Currently enrolled.
Motion made by Ken.
I'll second
Second.
it.
Further
The
discussion?
reason for doing it that way is, there was, and Ron and John can probably speak with more authority since I heard it from them, so we're already secondhand. The Department of Health Human Services is begging people not to close child care programs because it's needed. The reason of putting the limit on it to doing the current ones, because I think we can comply with that. But if we open it up, that means every student up to 5th grade could now come to child care. So that's what the motion is.
Or students currently at the childcare
They're
can
enrolled.
go to the childcare,
Yeah.
not new people.
And so,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and if we have all those kids all day long that are normally in school and just go before and after school, are we still legally, do we need to add additional people to make that legal for?
It's a question that we're gonna get back to you on. I think staffing is gonna be an issue, but when Ken says using those kids that are currently enrolled,
Right.
I think we are staffed sufficiently. What we're learning, what we're hearing now is we are not seeing as many kids show up as we anticipated or expected. That could be because parents have decided to keep their kids home. It could also be it was a Monday and it was a long weekend and kids didn't show up. So we need to take a look at where we are, how many kids are actually showing up, and then review those staffing levels. I don't have any reason to believe that we're going to be behind the 8 ball in terms of staffing, but I also don't have a great deal of information to back that up.
So could we also do, like, we talk to the experts, but do preventative things, like maybe they take temperatures? I mean, the temperature is the thing that kind of triggers everything. I mean, like, could they take temperatures during childcare, catch kids that maybe are getting temperatures, pull them out to see if something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we
Be
could.
kind of proactive with monitoring the kids?
I think we could do the same types of things that we discussed on Friday, in terms of, first of all, encouraging people who are feeling ill to please stay home, continue with that training and that emphasis on hand washing, giving kids ample opportunities to do that throughout the day. We had talked about kind of a triage approach to what do we do if a kid's feeling ill? Do we need to have a place where they can go and just separate them immediately from other kids? I think that we have more ability to do that because we have far fewer kids that we're talking about than we were last week. So I think all of those same. Yeah, exactly. And we also have the opportunity, the ability to spread them out somewhat. Now, we're not gonna be able to limit them to groups of 10, but that would be ideal. But we have more flexibility because we're talking about fewer kids. So I think all those things we talked about on Friday would be in play.
Did DHS give a number of kids, or are they still suggesting 10 and under? I mean, when they're pegging for childcare, they didn't say anything, did they?
They did not address that. I'm gonna go on a limb, and again, I'm gonna speak to things that I may not be qualified to speak about, but I got the impression that they are in a fairly desperate position because it sounded to me, and Jonna, please correct me if I err here, but it sounded to me like they were even willing to kind of lower their bar in terms of expectations to get more people to provide these services because they're really hurting.
An email I got from DHS stated that, so I'm licensed for 18. I don't have 18, don't want 18, but I have been given permission during these closings, I can go up as long as I add another helper. And that I can also take temperatures before they even come my door. And they've asked parents, do not come in the residence. So parents my helper will be standing at the door and take the kids, and the parents can't even come in my house. So we might want, if DHS is giving those kind of rules, we might want to use that for daycare. Drop your kid at the door, temperature will be taken, and then you stay out there and they can go in.
Absolutely.
So,
those could be
we
some
could work out
policy-
those
Yeah,
details.
those details
Yeah.
we could work out.
but I mean, that's just something DHS is willing to do.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you set a
It shows-
protocol, you're gonna have it.
Yeah, it speaks to the community involvement that we're trying to get here, that we're trying to call all hands on deck to get through this together as a community. So the motion, would it be correct to say to leave Indianola childcare open, however, to limit it to current enrollment? Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0.
And I do have another comment on this coronavirus thing. One of the other things they recommend is that people over 70 without a cold not leave their house. I'll see you later.
See you, Ken. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
You
kid.
sound kind of stuffy.
I know. Get well.
Okay. We'll move to G2A here. Preschool program, days and hours, proposed change.
Please. This was discussed at the curriculum committee, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
Right.
you wanna take it?
go ahead.
So, we were presented at the curriculum committee that Really, our Purple and Gold program currently has 14 contact hours per week, and 10.5 hours of instructional time per week is what is required by the Department of Education. And they were proposing that we no longer have this program on Wednesdays. In the effect to, they just don't have any time for prep. They don't have any time to work on kids that have IEPs or 504s. There's a lot of professional development requirements that goes into these teachers and associates. And they gave us a whole list of things from CPR to first aid to mandatory reporting to gold. And they are just feeling like they aren't giving kids all the instructional time and everything that they need, because as teachers, they don't get time to plan. So they kind of came to talk to us, Mr. Johnson and Ms. Post.
And
Yeah.
they listed all the schools around us, and
Yes.
no one has it 5 days. Almost every school around here has a 4-day program. I've only was familiar with 4-day programs. I didn't realize even had a 5-day, and it's really difficult to get everything done in 5 days, and especially for the associates, if we had some of that time free, they could get more training, and it would really be advantageous, I think.
This has been an issue for several years, because as you said, we're different than almost everyone.
We are.
And I think one of the things that is really unique, I know they've listed a number of things, but I've heard about this for at least 5 or 6 years, and that issue of teaming, planning, and assessment always come up. The gold curriculum that they are required to use is very prescriptive in terms of how you do things. It doesn't really lend itself, it doesn't provide great flexibility. So they're really caught between a rock and a hard place in terms of satisfying those requirements and doing all the other things they need to do.
There are preschool things to do for kids, developmentally appropriate, yes, exactly. So,
I feel good about this change if it's what they feel they need in the experts. The only thing I would echo what Ken had, I visited with Ken about earlier, is has it been brought up to the people that we serve in this program? Have they been told about this potential change?
It'd be for the next school year, though.
it would be
right?
for the
It'd
next
be for the
school year,
next
so I
school
think
year.
what information would just go out and say, preschool will.
You guys feel like that's enough time
like,
to warrant?
One thing I would say is it would maybe be prudent to talk to the local daycares. Don't they sometimes bus and do things?
Yeah, we probably would want to
Yeah.
coordinate to make sure.
Make sure they, if we decide that we're doing it, that they get warning that, they would need to adjust accordingly.
Sure.
I think the main issue would be for people that don't go to any childcare, that the kids
Right.
aren't there, that they would need to get some daycare for that Wednesday. But it's just, is it half-day, Ron? It's 2 half-day programs.
Yeah.
It's really only 3 or 4 hours, so I would assume people have to have childcare most of the rest of the day.
But their
for
volume
kids.
would be different. That's just
Right,
saying the people.
right,
yeah.
right. I'm just saying, if you wanted to talk about what,
Yeah, because they're only there 2 hours on Wednesday.
We could certainly do that. We could reach out to Kim and Ed and make sure that those steps are followed so that everybody's very clear on what's happening.
Well, like I was thinking, like, what's the one down the street?
Little Miracles.
Yeah, just people that do daycare.
I'm for it.
Well, there you go.
'Cause then you don't have
Yeah.
to transport.
True.
Is that a motion?
I'm just saying, all the daycare providers I've talked to, they're all for it because you don't have to have somebody transport. Because you basically drop them off, you come back, and then you're going right back to school again because they get out at 10. And parents have to leave work. I see people all the time run, grab their kid, and take them back to daycare. So, I don't know.
Yeah,
I would
it's
still
all the
reach
way-
out to like Little Miracles, who
It's
is a
in the
big one.
fall, I feel like that should be ample enough time for parents to deal with the schedule change, something they're used to.
So
I
you
will
think
move
so?
approval of the preschool programming schedule change from, down to 12 hours from 14.
Motion
Second.
made- Seconded by Donna. Any further board discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 6-0. Next, Board Human Resources Committee report.
I left early, so we talked about associates.
Yeah.
We talked,
Yeah, we did, the majority of the meeting, we spoke about, associate and retention. And then we looked at wage comparisons for Ron, had done an analysis of different employers here in Indianola, as well as Carlisle and Norwalk school districts, to show what the wages were and also all the benefits that are provided to associates in those two districts, but then also to just hourly employees at a multitude of different employers around Indianola. For the most part, we were not out of line. We were really right in line on the wage. On the benefit side was where, of course, we're lacking. We are lacking in that area. So
Is that as compared to other school districts or just overall employers that are in it?
Both,
Yeah.
like dip schools around us.
So we looked at that. We talked through a few different things and ideas of things we may be able to help in that regard.
Donna gave us a kind of a brief what it costs for insurance, like to do insurance. Like they pay some or they share, what that numbers would look like.
Yeah.
Still kind of looking at the different things, yeah.
Right. Of course, everything got upended in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
With everything else we're dealing with.
And we talked about associate training,
Yes.
just different ideas, but now we're kind of gonna be on hold till we,
But some things to think through. We did not get to the interview. I had read through them, and you guys probably got that email ahead of time. Did you guys? Was it just to the board or to the committee, or
Was it
was it
us?
also to
I think it was
this?
just committee.
I think it was
Okay.
just us.
Okay, those were good questions, and they were questions for current employees here within our district, like survey questions. I think that would be something I would like to see the
I think Ken
administration
was
go
for
ahead and
that
send
too,
out.
wasn't he? Didn't he talk to you about that?
Yeah.
Those survey questions?
Yeah, it was some good questions on there, I felt appropriate, so.
One thing I was gonna add, which is kind of more of a general statement, but it has to do with anytime we're considering anything. I think we need to be pretty forward-looking and realize the economy probably is gonna take a hit from this. It's kind of obvious, so it will roll into money the next year. Jonna could probably speak to that more, but, I mean, you know what I mean, we just need to be pretty cautious.
Because we don't know, I mean, right now, the state did, or the legislators did approve, and the governor did sign 2.1% increase for SSA. I don't know if that's gonna change now.
I know, that's what I mean, it's like, I just think.
I mean, right now, we're
It's just
saying
a hard
we're
time.
good, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to take action, I just think, yeah, you should have that in the back of your mind,
Yeah.
like, there's a lot of uncertainty that,
There is.
yeah.
And the, 10 years ago or so, when we had the crisis, the financial crisis, there was, they left the SSA, or they called it allowable growth back then. And then they gave it across the board cut, which is hard as well. So, either way, we just need to be cautious as to where we go from here, so.
Teacher quality committee meeting report.
We've talked about this committee in the past, and you recall that this is a committee that's comprised of an equal number of administrators and teachers. And the intent is to cover a number of topics, primarily the use of TQC, teacher quality funds. The focus of our last meeting really dealt with our performance review plan, or our process. And we had talked a lot about just getting clarity about that, and I think it's something, it's been with us a long time. I think people, for the most part, understand what we're dealing with, but we did start to talk about things, maybe portions of that plan that lack clarity, and made a commitment to clean some of those up using our teacher handbook committee. So the commitment was, when we reconvene, and actually, again, it's ironic how many times we're saying how things are up in the air at this point, because the plan was to come back from spring break and to have another meeting of those groups and those folks, and really sit down and start plugging through this. Just cleaning it up so that everybody's very clear, making distinctions between the intensive assistance process and other parts of that, you know, how do we document those kinds of things. So all in all, a pretty positive meeting, and I think it's gonna help us get a much better product in terms of what we're doing with performance evaluation here in the district.
So will we not be able to meet, I mean, groups like that, can we not Is that gonna be all on hold too?
Yeah, I believe it will, because we've just closed our buildings to,
Okay.
you know, to everyone.
I mean, I'm just wondering if that's,
And I think, in that group, there are 12 of us on that group, so that would break the board's
you
decision
need
to
12
keep it to
squares
10.
back there, Bertie.
Yeah, get your tape out, Bertie. So, a good meeting, and I think we've got a good direction moving forward from that.
Moving to 5A, issuance of 2021 certified teacher contracts. This would require board action.
List is there for both certified teachers' contracts and extended teachers' contracts. So that would be our librarians, the extended people are librarians, guidance counselors, and our ag teacher get extended days. So, the goal was to have the activities, but they had some changes within the activities, and then when all this has come down, we'll get to that later. What this does is it allows us to send out, because it's electronic, so people will get it. And then they have 21 days to sign for next year. So it's also, I think it's good for us to show that we're moving forward and looking at next year.
In reality, they actually have 21 days to not sign or tell us that they're not
Right,
coming back,
because if
because
they-
in the absence of a signature,
They're coming back.
Chapter 279, continuing contract law, tells them they have a contract. So that's, I say that not because it matters all that much, but I think there's a misconception that, you know, teachers don't have to sign if they don't sign it. That's not the case.
So this has to be two separate actions?
One.
I think you can do one and we'll put them, we'll put both the extended and the teachers together. That'd be fine.
Well, I'll move approval of the listed contracts.
Okay. Motion to approve, made by Carolyn.
I second.
Seconded by Lori. All those, any further board discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 6-0. Next, general obligation refunding bonds. So, John.
Yeah, we just, all ours is our bond council, our disclosure council, so they make sure that everything is in line as we go forward and guide us in the right direction. We did this just last fall, because it's a new issue, we need to do it again for this issue, so. Pretty basic.
Okay, I'm gonna move approval of the engagement letter with Allers to serve as bond counsel and disclosure counsel.
Motion made by Carolyn.
Second.
Seconded by Ben. Any further board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 6-0. Next, the 2020 roof project bids. Do you want to speak to that?
What was the
Yes,
original estimate? That's
so
what
we
I was
had,
trying to
we
remember.
had, what's that?
What was the original estimate?
330, so we did
Wow.
quite well.
Okay.
We had good turnout, got a lot of interest in our, the roofing bids. Ultimately, Brockway was recommended by our company, Shave Hattery, who does our roofing consulting.
Is that who did our roof at the high school?
They do, well, yes, it is.
It's the same
Last year.
company, last year's roof?
So, we just need approval so we can get going on it.
Letter B.
I'm on roll.
Okay.
I move approval of the lowest bid to Brockway Mechanical for the
But-
project. I'm doing
First
that
of
right.
all, I guess we need to say that, is there anybody that speaks for or against that in this? Because it is a public
Oh,
hearing.
this is the
Okay,
public.
sorry.
Yeah, I
Oh.
apologize. Fix the roof.
We're all looking their squares back there.
That's what I was hoping. She told me she had to do that.
She set me up.
Sorry.
So that being not being
I was sitting there
said,
going, John had told me that we had to see.
You're up there.
All right, go
So
Carolyn,
now,
fire away.
okay,
now I move approval.
All right.
Second.
Seconded by Ben. Any further board discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0. Next is the 2021 preliminary budget.
okay, so, as you can see, you know, all along, we really thought we were going to be on the budget guarantee. Two things that kind of went together that have helped us is they increased the district per pupil amount, and we are at the minimum, so we got a $10 increase per student. That helped, along with the 2.1, when we were calculating two, we would have been on the budget guarantee, 2.059 or something like that, we'd go off the budget guarantee, so 2.1, we're off, so that's good. And so our new money would be 330,177. Tax rate is calculated right now at just under $18, so $17.99. So this year's current budget is at $18.50, so we're seeing a decrease of 51 cents.
How much did you say, 331,000?
330,177.
How much did it cost to advance the salary schedule? Do you know off the top of your head?
Well, to do everything on the salary schedule, about 450, so.
Okay. So that's not a $330
So it's not, so we're already, we're using that, we're moving, we're using our surpluses to get into that, so. And as you have the first page, with new board members, I want to explain this, because the first page of the budget shows the adoption of budget and taxes. As you look at that, it shows at the bottom that you see the $17.99, that brings in about $17 million worth of property taxes. If you go to the second page, it's the publication, it's a proposed, school district budget summary. So when you look at that, it's very confusing. It's the smaller print one, the second page of the budget. That is what is published. So when you look at that, that is all of our funds going into one. So general fund, activity fund, management fund, all across the board. And as you look at the percentages way to the right are a 2-year swing, not a 1-year swing. It goes from FY19 up to the 2021. So it's kind of confusing. It's very, it's confusing to people because it's everything. In my job, this is what we have to do because this is required. I never use this, I use it broken out. So you see how when we say general fund is this, we break it out by that. So if anybody has questions, I'm happy to explain it, but it's the maximum budget that we can have is what we have to show there. So, and then it breaks down in the next 2 pages, the page 1 and page 2 by fund, you'll see it there. If you added all those together, that's what you'd see for the 2021 budget. So, and the final page of the budget is our debt, so you'll see the different debt pieces for both GO bonds and sales tax revenue bonds. Then we're refinancing some GO bonds, the ones, you'll see number 7, there's a placeholder there so that we can fit that in. Okay. And then when we get the final piece before May, we'll adjust, send that to the state to get the exact amount for that, so. So I think it'll be good. I mean, again, one of the things we try to do, and when you look at the expenses, we try to maximize our budget, so if something, and this is a perfect year of unknown, we don't know, we'll have to amend anyway this current budget because of our different refundings that we've done. We're gonna do that, we'll do that towards the end of the year in case there's anything else that comes up. And once we do that, then when we share with our auditor, they know that we haven't overspent our budget. So, any questions? Good job. And if you have questions, I'm happy to talk. It's kind of overwhelming, I know. So.
I'm just glad I don't have your job because that's just stressful.
But what I'm asking for is we need to publish that second page.
Oh, so we gotta
I'll make a motion to approve the publishing notice of public hearing for the 2020-21 certified budget in the local newspaper.
Motion made by Ben,
I second.
seconded by Lori. Any further board discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0. Okay, on to our monthly financials. And Carolyn and I keep getting white pages here, Jonathan.
Keep going down.
That's why.
What's that?
Keep going.
And lots of white pages.
I don't know if it's how those pages are
mine loaded.
compared to
Oh,
other things.
those did.
I think it's how it's low, mine's freezing
Oh,
right
yeah,
now.
it's
just freezing. Mine
I'm
is
like
too. I
blank
keep-
pages,
yeah,
like
okay.
it
Got it.
doesn't populate.
I didn't hear anything.
Mine's doing that.
In the
In the
No,
back.
okay,
So when you-
see it?
So like when I get to your page with your spreadsheet, how it was loaded, it's just,
It's
Your
not.
budget
Mine
spreadsheet
was
didn't
freezing
play
too.
well.
It'll eventually pop
Yeah.
up, but it takes a while.
just taking a
Yeah.
little bit
Oh,
of
really?
time.
Yeah, really long.
Mhm. Yeah.
Did you get
Okay.
it? You got the graph, didn't you?
I
No,
got it
just,
finally,
I mean,
yeah.
just now.
Oh, so
We should be down to page 62 in your board packet.
Yeah.
62, okay.
61, 62, 63.
give it to
Yeah,
you.
there's just
So
a
as you
lot of
look at,
ways.
we're really tracking where we were a year ago. I mean, if you look, the graph is the easiest one to see that on with that, that we are within $50,000 of last year, you know, or so, around that. Is it 50?
So will this, all this happening right now is really gonna throw a wrench in your,
I think it works.
Yeah, it depends on how, you
everything
know,
plays out?
Right, right. You know, there's different ways that we would, you know, we could pay people, different ways. It would be possibly through the state or through our funds. We
Well, I
have to
just mean
figure
like
that
food
out.
service and all that.
It's all gonna change,
It's
yeah.
all gonna be, so that, we won't see that hit till then June, right? When you do a financial in June?
Well, yeah, at the end of the year, then you'll kind of see how this all played out, right? Jim is working on food, you know, delivering food to different places. That may expend some of his funds, or it may,
Right.
that we push something into the general fund for that. The general fund is not a recurring, you know, we can't spend everything out of the general fund, so we have to be, you know, fiscally responsible for that. But, I don't know how else to move forward, but I mean, we are financially solvent, we are financially healthy, which is good.
So you feel comfortable about all of it?
Well, not really.
Well, not comfortable, but where we're at right now.
Right, well, financially, I mean, we are in a good position, but it could turn the tables on us very quickly if we don't know where we're going, you know. So, we're trying to be very calm about it, and we'll deal with it as it comes along, and as we take the guidance from the state and
But
the feds.
every district's got that.
We are not alone, yeah.
Have we had the naughty audit yet, where our food service is negative and?
They're finishing that up now. They've had some struggles. They've been busy at their office, so we're trying to be patient. They had just released that, usually by March 31st that are all due. They've pushed that back as well. I mean, a lot of things are being delayed or.
We may not see that for quite a while then.
I hope we do it soon. So they're close, I think.
I would
but-
say too, I think the state is doing a good job.
They are.
As good a job as can be done. When I listen to Governor Reynolds, the magnitude, the complexity of this is really apparent.
Oh my God.
And we may not be getting answers as quickly as we would like, but when I really step back, I'm stunned at how quickly we are getting answered.
No, I mean, just from that thing they're finishing up, I'm like, you know, are we gonna get dinged for not having our numbers down, or?
This may not help.
I
for
know,
next
that's
year.
what,
But,
are we really gonna get our hands,
yeah.
because it's not gonna be any better.
In the other school
Yeah.
district.
Well, I know, we're gonna be the same as everybody else.
So that's very much of an overview. You kind of see where we are. Financially, we're within the 39% or 36% to 41%. A lot of that is our new self-funded insurance program. So that's over $1 million right there. Other than that, we're just chugging along, and now we just have to see where we go next.
I'm gonna move approval of the monthly financial reports.
Second.
Seconded by Donna. Any further board discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? 6-0. Board Facilities Committee meeting report.
Yeah, I can go over it really quick. We just talked about the auditorium safety improvements with the rigging system that we've talked about before. Bernie's met with Shive Hattery, and they've had their engineer, and it looks like everything is progressing along on that with the projection of beginning in July. Is that still online? And then also working with Shive Hattery on some schematic designs for the lobby entranceway into the gymnasium, and then on around the corner to the auditorium. So that's in its infancy stages right now, but just kind of getting some ideas on cost and design at this point. Middle school, been looking at some options for renovating space, not adding square footage necessarily, but just renovating the middle school library, computer lab area for several smaller meeting spaces. It sounds like they're pretty limited in their space right there now, so just trying to reconfigure some existing space. And the last thing we talked about is with what's been going on with the coronavirus The district's ordered some electrostatic disinfectant systems, kinda look like big white
Ghostbusters?
Star Wars
Star
guns.
Wars, yeah.
But, you know, they've been spraying them throughout the school on a pretty regular and consistent rotation. It's just been one of the many things Bernie and his staff have really changed to increase, you know, the capacity to keep the buildings as clean and as possible. So
The buses every night too, aren't they? They're taking that, all of the buses, what the bus driver told me on Friday.
Very more.
Not anymore, yeah. Well,
The
they were.
question I had was with the middle school, is that just like we're at the stage where we're just kind of sizing up what it would cost and then figuring out priorities after that?
Yes.
Okay. I was gonna say that was a new one for me. The third.
Is this track still on?
Media center.
Bid is tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow?
Here at 2:00. Here. Less than 10 people probably.
And they're squares.
This one, middle school media?
There's an email from Tim,
I'm just-
Today.
just looking now.
Okay.
Sorry, moving on, thanks, Ben. Next, we'll go down to 6A and B. I guess is that you, Rowan, or Ben, I guess, for the,
yeah, that was
it's Ken's going.
Ken and Art, and so I'm the only one here, I guess. So trying to think back to this, nothing major change-wise.
It's the first reading.
It is the first reading. There was nothing significant that changed. Couple things, there were some, couple things where we changed where the wording where it would say the superintendent or designee. We just, I think there's a policy specific that addresses if it's not the superintendent, it's their designee. We just maybe added it, I think, if I remember correctly, into some of the specific policies. But other than that, that was the only really major change.
And that's really to be consistent with other policies, and we've been doing that for years,
Yeah.
a couple of years.
Yeah, and like I said, there's a standalone policy with it, but we just felt it was probably best to include it within the individual policies as well.
It seems like it's been a while since we've done this one, but the only other thing I recall that strike-throughs were just, they weren't changing substantively the message, it was just cleaning up the language to make it a bit more clear.
Correct.
So this is the first reading then?
First reading.
Yes.
Action item.
We're all in.
Trying to get back up at the top to get, I'll move
No, I
to
missed
approve.
first
Yeah.
of reading, approval of the first reading of
Those policies.
this, yeah, there's your policy as well.
Okay, motion made by Karen and seconded by Ben. Any further board discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, 6-0. Alright,
So there's a copy of the upcoming board calendar, things that are happening. When we get to this point, I think we need to kind of acknowledge where we are again relative to this health crisis. As you walked in the door today, you saw the sign stating that we're discouraging people from attending these meetings. We were careful to say that everyone has a right to attend public meetings, so we certainly don't want to close the doors. But in the spirit of the social distancing and the recommendations of the CDC, I think we do have an obligation to model things for our community. So as we move forward with our board calendar, and I would say even subsequent board meetings, I would ask the board to consider, do we want to explore different options in terms of meetings? So for instance, is it feasible, is it convenient, is it desirable that we would have online meetings? And you know, I'm gonna tell you, I'm probably the last person to get into what that would look like and how it would work. But if that's something that the board wants to look into, I would speak with Ray Coffey and his folks to see how do we make that happen. Generally, we don't have these issues with committee meetings because we don't have 10 people. But I think we do have to ask ourselves the question, if we don't need to meet, should we be meeting? And could we do those meetings differently? Could we do them telephonically? Could we do them remotely?
Do you guys use Skype or how?
I've become fairly proficient in the use of Skype and Zoom
Yeah.
and Google
Okay.
Hangouts
Okay.
in the last
That's
week.
good.
But I think that's exactly the kinds of things that I would encourage you to think about. They're your meetings, so I don't feel as if I'm in a place to suggest, but I want you to think about that moving forward so that if it's something you want to do, that we can take the appropriate steps to see how we go about doing that.
Says that's how they do their meetings, so maybe it's not so hard.
I think it's a good thing to consider, like you said, I think we need to set the tone and our less is what's being asked. I think that would probably be something we should look into.
Do you guys feel like we're still needing to do the committee meetings if nothing's going, well, not
Like
nothing?
you're on the policy,
Command
so you
center's
guys
still
want-
going?
Yeah, we're still here, yeah.
We are, but I don't think it would.
We kind of just like leave it up to good judgment, like, you know, people feel like there's a need for a meeting, have the meeting. I don't take it sold if something, yeah.
If they don't have anything really,
Probably facilities would be the only thing, right, that would be that, I mean,
Possibly.
I don't
We're
know,
not.
facilities is
or
only
no.
like
I mean,
5.
we're kind of logged in for this summer now.
Oh, well then-
Different things, so we might not have a lot.
Just
for
board
facilities.
meetings?
We have a special board meeting scheduled for the 23rd.
23rd will be, there's a lot of hearings. There's public hearing for the
Yeah, I'm just gonna-
stadium and the project because we're opening bids tomorrow.
It'd be just a shorter.
It'd be, and then, there's a public hearing for the bonds, there's something, maybe not a public hearing, an action item for the bond stuff. There's just
Same night.
timing stuff that has to happen, so
Is that the
John,
same night?
it is the 23rd. Yeah, we're
23rd,
trying to get it all set up.
Perhaps this is my lack of imagination, but I'm not sure what a public hearing would look like in a remote type of meeting.
Well, the public, they could still be, it's the public would, if they wanted to come and speak to the project, that's.
Come talk to a telephone.
Got room for 8.
Yeah, but if you, well, you'd have to then send that link out and the phone number and all that to
Yeah.
everybody and at that stage, because when I'm on my phone calls with the governor's council, there's almost 25 people on the phone call, and to be able to really monitor who's talking when
That's difficult,
is
yeah.
very,
Could I suggest then, just given the fact that staff are away this week, the people that could actually implement this are gone, Ray namely, and given the fact that March 23rd is somewhat anomalous, it's gonna be a brief meeting, may not be heavily attended.
Yeah.
Maybe we just have that one as scheduled and then start looking at other
April
opportunities.
13th. Well, the April 13th is the next one. So technically,
We're back in
right now,
school.
you could be back, possibly.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if we're back in school, it's kind of silly to go to all that work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say if the 23rd is fast, let's just leave
It
it,
will
we
be
can all
fast.
sit away from each other or something.
do we just need quorum at that though?
Yeah.
Right, so really,
We only need
all
4.
we need is,
You need 4 or more, right? And I know I need to have 4.
we do facilities and.
I mean, if our facilities there.
I mean, if we kind of did social distance, like we did the,
Yeah.
I mean, really though, we could, I mean, people wouldn't come if they're sick,
Right.
so.
You're liking the
if-
squares, aren't you?
I like.
I
those
am liking
squares.
the squares.
Bernie,
Bernie, I
Bernie
think
left.
Bernie just, I think we see you in there. Look at these people, they did a nice job.
Yeah, they're in their squares.
Compliment the audience.
So let's do Monday's meeting.
I just say we do it and get done and get out.
And-
Skip
and
that one, and
I
then-
don't know if we,
Let's
yeah,
go there.
having you back in school,
Then we'll
it's
revisit,
kind of, yeah.
then we'll hold all board committee meetings, like
As needed.
finance, technology, yeah, we could just. only
Finance was
meet-
scheduled for, or was supposed to be tomorrow, but we didn't have it because of spring break originally,
Okay.
so that's not.
So it couldn't, if you're,
We'll just.
Ron needs something, then you can call that committee and say, I need you guys to come
Sure.
in, we gotta do a vote, or we gotta bring something to your
But I think
attention.
Skype, look into
Yeah,
Skype.
or,
Do you
yeah,
mind?
and I think what we
Google
could do, even though we're planning next week, business as usual, I will go ahead and start, reach out to Ray and say, how do we do this? What would we have to do to get these things in place? And at least have a plan. So if, God forbid, this closure goes beyond April 13th, we have a plan.
Or the government could do a more strict closing of things.
Yeah.
So you
We don't-
can
we
you
don't-
send us
Would
one?
it even let us?
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
But that's when we do our budgets too, so there's a lot of things that are time sensitive.
Oh, but
and-
I'm just saying, like when in the business world, I've been spending way too many hours on this. But I mean, if you can do Skype meetings with, your visuals and all that, and just have it all over the phone, I mean, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So we're working, but we're still going into work, but, our backup plan is to do everything remotely with Skype or Teams, which if you don't use Teams, there's no reason to do it for just that.
We'll work on at least
Yeah.
having a plan that we could present and say, here's what it could look like.
Right.
Because Monday is 7 days away, a lot of things happening.
Yeah, right, again, day by day.
Before we end, I just want to thank everybody again. I know you guys have gotten hit with a lot of emails, and phone calls, and text and things over the last few days about all these different things happening, and probably stopped in stores and stuff. So continue to do what you do in a good way of leading and giving people correct answers and factual information as things continue to change. I know the administration, I'm very proud that they've done such a good job of keeping things in front of us and keeping on top of things. And that meeting last Friday, I think, went really well and helped us all know for sure, we were right. We were in a place that we needed to be at that time. Now, things changed after that, but here we are again. And I think our message to the community needs to be that we will change as needed, and we'll get our direction from the state of Iowa and continue to, and the administration and everybody will do their best, but we all have to roll up our sleeves as a community, come together and get through this, so that way when we're on the other side, we can look back and say, we made it through, now let's continue back to life again. So, so as you interact with the public over the coming days, be sure to encourage them and let them know to just keep moving forward and to a call for action, for people to come together as a community. This is a great time for Indianola to rally and come together as much as we can as a community to help serve each other and to help one another's neighbors. Where we start to see somebody hurting, it's a great opportunity to do that. So,
And I think Sue had a good thing too. You had mentioned to me about if somebody reaches out to us about needing food or assistance, Sue said to get in contact with Helping Hand. So if we find people in that situation, Sue can give them more information, and because I've already had people reach out and I've sent to Sue. So I do have a couple things. So I want to make sure we're clear. Daycare is going to remain open. We will return to school on the 12th. Now I have a really silly question because I just popped on my
Technically though,
phone.
you guys, I think the 12th was a scheduled off day for us.
12th is a
Wasn't that-
Sunday.
12th is a Sunday.
12th is a-
So we are
So
off
the 13th
through
is a
the
Monday.
12th. We would, under the current scenario, we would return to school on April 13th.
Right.
Which is a Monday.
And that wasn't already a scheduled day off because of Easter weekend.
No.
I do not believe
That's
so.
No. Right? That's
I
not Good
would-
Friday.
I need to check.
Yeah, I,
And my one question, if we have people ask us about post-prom, I know that's the farthest thing from your mind.
Got a lot of dresses purchased.
Well,
I know, I've had,
It's April 18th, so
I
it depends
know,
on.
if we're
Oh,
back,
Yeah.
we'll take guidance from the state.
I know, that's what I've been telling them, we'll just have to wait to see what the state tells us, that they still
There's gonna be
say,
a lot of inconveniences and a lot of things that
Yeah.
we have to just say, you know what? This is for the betterment of
Yeah.
our community and our country, so
and just
sacrifices will have
just
to be made.
to clarify, because there are a lot of questions running through from people watching this,
yeah,
about intercession, Irving intercession. So just to clarify, if they are currently enrolled in ICC, so they go to it before or after their intercession at Irving, they still qualify to go to ICC because they're currently enrolled in the program.
That is my understanding based upon the motion and the action that the board took.
Okay,
So long as they're on the roll, so long as they're currently enrolled, they are eligible for childcare.
and we are keeping this open because DHS recommendations and plead to us.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
Now, I will send a communication out this evening. If I can manage the Bright Arrow Emergency Communication System, I will send an email to all parents and all staff, and then I will do my best to get it posted to the website. I'm not gonna make promises about that tonight. That may
And
be
say
an
it's
all-
fluid, or,
Yeah.
big bold letters.
Yeah. And we I will say again that I started this by saying I was really relieved, pleased by the communication that we've received from the state. So that's a great lesson. I think we can provide that same type of relief and reassurance through our own communication. So we're gonna strive to communicate frequently. We haven't communicated anything yet today because we needed board action, we needed clarity. So now that we have all of those things in place, we're gonna start communicating that out. And as things change, which I know they will, as we said time and time again, this is a fluid situation, we're gonna continue to communicate using those same avenues.
Is that why you see some of the schools are just closed today and tomorrow, so their board has time to meet and get an action made?
I think the majority of those schools they didn't have a full week spring break like we did, so they may have been planning to come to school. Now, I will say that I would like to get our name on the list so that our folks aren't left wondering, why isn't Indianola there?
Yeah.
In our minds, well, we're already on spring break. They may not be thinking that way, so we need to anticipate that.
Yeah, well, you just see it come across the thing, so I wondered if their boards had not got a chance to meet yet and make that decision, so.
Maybe.
So when we have like our website and things like that, do we, I haven't looked, but I know that there were some things that were publicly announced today, like hotlines, so that people don't call their doctors or the hospitals unless they need to. But you know, like, oh, I've got the fever, I probably have it. To get questions answered, they're really trying to redirect them into a hotline. Do we ever do things like that for parents, or?
We sure could. I mean, the last one of these I sent
that
had
211.
links. I think we have sent the 211 link, I
Okay.
believe. So we've done that. We did that on Friday.
Okay.
I think that's just a matter of, I can kind of dig in tomorrow and see what additional resources are there and send it out. Tonight, I just want to be clear.
would hit links, I'm trying to ask you.
Well,
to
they're
do
really
more of it.
pushing everyone through 211
Yeah.
at this point. The state is pushing everyone through 211 to mainstream it all.
You said we come back April 13th, right?
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for stepping up to the plate, Ron. Probably the
Yes,
last thing you had on
Ron.
your mind when Art said, hey,
Spring
you
break.
fill in for me for a couple of weeks.
John and I have been very clear that Art is no longer allowed to go on any type of medical leave. Or that we need to approve said medical leave. I'm not sure how he feels about that, but
Good job.
I move to adjourn.
Motion made by Carolyn,
Second.
seconded by Donna. Everyone in
Rob,
favor?
thank you for, oh, yeah, aye.
Do we need to talk to
Thank
you
you.
guys about
Yeah.
food? They don't speak on
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
what-
gonna
wait,
visit a few,
wait.
just only 3 of us can, so.
Justin?
Adjourn.
So, is somebody going?
Am I right in thinking like sports